The Key to Us. An Alphabet Sweethearts Romance. Written by Suzanne Ash. Please like and subscribe. Chapter 1. Zoe. The Welcome to Juniper Falls sign looks exactly the same as it did 10 years ago, right down to the chipped paint on the mountain silhouette. I grip my steering wheel tighter, ignoring the flutter in my stomach as I pass it. Some things in this town never change. It's what I'd been counting on when I left. And what I'd been dreading about coming back. It's just 3 days, I remind myself, adjusting the rearview mirror for the 4th time since crossing the county line. Smile, celebrate Mom and Dad's anniversary, then back to real life. The words echo in my car's interior, not quite convincing. My phone chirps with the GPS announcement, though I could drive to my parents' Victorian house blindfolded. Every turn, every familiar landmark, brings a fresh wave of memories. The coffee shop where I spent summers sketching design ideas in worn notebooks. The park where I learned to ride my bike. The Carter house next door to my parents, where... Nope, I say firmly, cutting off that particular train of thought. Not going there. I turn into the driveway, tires crunching on gravel, and freeze. There's a familiar navy blue truck parked in front of the house. My heart does a complicated stumble as I read the lettering on its side, Carter Real Estate, your key to home. For a moment, I consider backing out, driving straight back to Charlotte. But before I can shift into reverse, the front door opens and my mother appears on the porch, waving enthusiastically. You're here. She hurries down the steps, somehow looking exactly like the mom in my memories and completely different at the same time. There are more silver strands in her dark hair, new laugh lines around her eyes. I step out of my car on shaky legs. Hi, Mom. She wraps me in a hug that smells like lavender and home, and for a moment I'm 12 again, safe in her arms. Perfect timing, she says, pulling back to study my face. We're just going over some paperwork. My stomach drops. We? As if on cue, a tall figure appears in the doorway. Ryan Carter looks unfairly good in dark jeans and a blue button-down that makes his eyes seem even more intense than I remember. His sandy blonde hair is shorter now, styled instead of perpetually tousled, but still has that slight wave that used to drive him crazy. Used to drive me crazy too, but in a different way. Zoe. His voice is deeper than in my memories, with a quiet certainty that wasn't there before. Welcome home. Home. The word hits me like a physical thing. This hasn't been home since the night I left, since I chose my dreams over his, over everything we'd planned together. Ryan. I manage a smile that feels too tight. I didn't expect to see you here. Your parents are thinking of downsizing. He descends the porch steps with that easy grace he's always had, like gravity affects him differently than everyone else. They asked for my professional opinion. Of course they did. Because Ryan Carter isn't just the boy next door anymore. He's Juniper Falls' most successful real estate agent. The same way I'm not just the girl who left. I'm a rising star in Charlotte's interior design scene. We've both gotten exactly what we wanted. So why does standing here, breathing the same mountain air as him, make me feel like I'm 18 again and everything is possible? Zoe's doing so well with her design business, Mom says, either oblivious to the tension or deliberately ignoring it. Knowing her, probably the latter. Maybe you two could. Mom. My voice comes out sharper than intended. I soften it with effort. I'm sure Ryan has other appointments. His eyes flicker down to meet mine. Actually, I was just finishing up here. He turns to my mother. I'll email you those comps we discussed, Mrs. Thompson. Take some time to look them over. Thank you, dear. Mom squeezes his arm like she's done 1,000 times before, when he was just the boy next door who mowed our lawn and fixed the loose boards on our porch. Will we see you at the anniversary party? I busy myself with grabbing my weekend bag from the car, pretending I'm not listening for his answer. Wouldn't miss it. His voice is warm when he speaks to her, familiar in a way that makes my chest ache. 30 years is something worth celebrating. He brushes past me on his way to his truck, and the scent of his cologne, something woodsy and clean, brings back a rush of memories. Summer nights on the porch swing. His hand in mine at the Spring Blossom Festival. The look in his eyes the night I told him I was leaving. Zoe. He pauses, key fob in hand. When I look up, his expression is carefully neutral. Professional. It's good to see you. Before I can respond, he's in his truck, backing out of the driveway with practiced ease. I watch until he turns the corner, until the last glimpse of navy blue disappears behind Mrs. Elliott's towering hydrangeas. Well, Mom says, linking her arm through mine. That wasn't awkward at all. I groan, letting my head fall against her shoulder. Mom. She pats my hand. Come on, honey. I made snickerdoodles. And then you can tell me why you're really nervous about being home. I'm not nervous. But I let her lead me inside, into the house that smells like cookies and childhood and choices I'm not sure I want to re-examine. The copper kettle at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon should have been a safe bet. The lunch rush is long over, the dinner crowd hasn't started trickling in, and most of the town is still at work. Which is exactly why I chose it. It was the perfect place to hide out and decompress after 2 hours of watching Mom sort through 3 decades of memories while making not-so-subtle comments about how nice Ryan looked in that blue shirt. I slouch lower in my corner booth, the same one where I used to spend hours sketching house plans in high school. The leather seat is cracked in exactly the same places, and someone has added to the collection of initials carved into the wooden table edge. Here you go, honey. Sarah Peterson, who hasn't aged a day since I left, sets a thick white mug in front of me and slides over the metal cream pitcher. Coffee, black, and a slice of apple pie a la mode coming right up. She winks. Some things change, but your comfort food order isn't one of them. I wrap my hands around the warm ceramic, touched that she remembers. Thanks, Sarah. Even the mugs are the same. The copper light fixtures are polished to a warm glow, the exposed brick walls somehow both rustic and elegant. It's exactly the kind of design aesthetic I try to create for my clients. It's authentic, with just a touch of sophistication. We did some updating last year. Sarah brushes imaginary crumbs from her apron. Though someone told me we absolutely had to keep the original fixtures. Said they were integral to the space's character. My cheeks warm. I might have mentioned that in passing. Mentioned it? A familiar voice makes me jump, splashing coffee onto the table. As I recall, you threatened to pick it if they changed the lighting. Ryan slides into the booth across from me, casual as can be, like we do this every day. Like my heart isn't currently trying to escape through my throat. I did not threaten to pick it. I grab a napkin, dabbing at the spilled coffee. I simply expressed my professional opinion about maintaining the architectural integrity of historic spaces, while waving around sketches like a protest sign. His eyes crinkle at the corners when he smiles. That hasn't changed either. Very professional. Sarah materializes with his coffee and a BLT on wheat before I can respond. You kids catch up, she says with a knowing look that makes me want to slide under the table. I'll be in the kitchen if you need anything. The silence stretches between us like taffy, sweet but slightly uncomfortable. Ryan takes a slow sip of his coffee, studying me over the rim of his mug. So, how's the big city treating you? Charlotte's good. I trace the rim of my mug with one finger. Busy. Lots of clients who want farmhouse chic, without actually living on a farm. Sounds. He pauses, and I can see him choosing his words carefully. Metropolitan. You can say pretentious. I surprise myself by laughing. Some of them definitely are. But the work is interesting, and I'm finally getting the kind of projects I always dreamed about. Something flickers in his eyes. Always was the dream, wasn't it? The bigger the better. There it is. The edge beneath the playful banter. The reminder that my dreams came with a price. Ryan. I didn't mean anything by it. but his smile doesn't quite reach his eyes now. You're doing exactly what you wanted. That's good. And you? The words come out before I can stop them. Are you doing what you wanted? He leans back, one arm stretched along the booth behind him. It's a pose I remember from 100 shared meals in this same spot, back when we were young and sure about everything. I'm helping people find their place in the world. Or at least in Juniper Falls. His lips quirk. Not as glamorous as Charlotte, but it suits me. I never said, I stop, take a breath. The town looks good. You've done well here. We all can't be city girls. There's that teasing tone again, but something else underneath it. Something that sounds almost like hurt. Some of us have to stick around, keep the porch lights on. Is that what you think? The bell above the door chimes, and we both look up to see Mrs. Elliot entering with her garden club friends. She spots us immediately, her eyes lighting up with an all too familiar matchmaking gleam. Ryan stands in one smooth motion. I should go. Showing a property in 20 minutes. He pulls out his wallet, but I wave him off. I've got it. At his raised eyebrow, I add, consider it payment for helping my parents today. Your parents don't need my help to sell their house, Zoe. He tucks his hands in his pockets, something he always used to do when he was trying not to reach for me. They just need someone to give them permission to start their next chapter. The weight of what he's not saying settles over the table like dust. I watch him walk away, calling out greetings to Mrs. Elliot's group with easy charm. Just before he reaches the door, he turns back. For what it's worth, he says, some of us think you belonged here just fine. The bell chimes again, and he's gone, leaving me with cooling coffee and the ghost of everything we used to be. Sarah appears with the coffee pot, topping off my mug without asking. You okay, honey? I stare into the dark liquid. I don't know what I expected, coming back here. She pats my shoulder. Sometimes you have to come back to figure out why you left in the first place.
Chapter 2. Ryan. The Thompsons' house keys feel heavier than usual in my hand as I unlock my office door. Every property I deal with has its own weight, its own story, but these keys are different. They carry the weight of summer evenings on the porch swing, of shared dreams sketched on graph paper, of goodbye. Morning, boss. Katie's cheerful voice cuts through my brooding as she breezes past my office, a stack of listing folders balanced precariously in her arms. The Hendersons called to cancel their 10 o'clock. Something about their son's soccer tournament. Thanks. I hang the Thompsons' keys on my designated client hook, right next to my collection of vintage keys. Each one tells a story of someone finding their place in Juniper Falls. Or leaving it. I drop into my chair, trying to focus on the market analysis spread across the desk. But my eyes keep drifting to the old blueprint cabinet in the corner. The one I rescued from the hardware store's renovation last year. The one where I keep things I should have thrown away years ago. Not going there, I mutter, echoing words I swear I heard Zoe say yesterday when she first pulled into her parents' driveway. But my feet have other ideas, carrying me to the cabinet before I can talk myself out of it. The drawer sticks, like always. Third one down, labeled personal. Inside, beneath property photos and old closing documents, I find what I'm looking for. What I've been trying not to look for since I saw her yesterday. The sketches are faded now, the graph paper soft at the corners from handling. But the lines are still clear. Her precise architectural drawings alongside my practical notes about load-bearing walls and permit requirements. Our dream house, planned down to the last window seat and built-in bookshelf. Hey, Ryan? Katie appears in my doorway, then stops. Oh. Sorry, I didn't mean to. What's up? I slide the drawings back into their folder, but not before she gets a good look. Are those the house plans you and Zoe drew up in high school? Her expression is too knowing. Sometimes I regret hiring someone who's lived in Juniper Falls her whole life. Sarah told me she's back in town. For her parents' anniversary. I return to my desk, straightening papers that don't need straightening. 3 days, then back to Charlotte. Katie leans against the doorframe. That's why you're digging out old blueprints at 8 in the morning? Did you need something? She holds up her hands in surrender. Just wanted to let you know the listing photos for the Miller property came in. But they can wait. She pauses. You know, since your morning's free now, I have plenty of work to do. She taps the doorframe twice, a habit she picked up from her father, who used to do the same thing at town council meetings. The Miller photos are in your inbox when you're done not thinking about Zoe Thompson. I wait until her footsteps fade before opening my email. The Miller property photos are right on top. It's a Victorian fixer-upper on the edge of town with good bones and a view of the mountains. The kind of project Zoe used to love back when she dreamed about staying. Before I can overthink it, I grab my keys and stand. Taking an early lunch, I call to Katie as I pass her desk. It's 8:30 in the morning, she points out, not looking up from her computer. Late breakfast, then. This time she does look up, smirking. The Copper Kettle's apple pie is still her favorite, in case you were wondering. Sarah says she was in there yesterday afternoon. I know. The words come out before I can stop them. At her raised eyebrows, I add, small town. Small town, she agrees, but her smile says something else entirely. I'm halfway to my truck when my phone buzzes. It's a text from Mrs. Elliott, saw you two at the diner yesterday. She's changed, but not as much as she thinks. Sometimes people need a key to unlock the door they close themselves. I shake my head, tucking the phone away. Trust Hazel Elliott to turn my own business slogan into relationship advice. The morning sun catches on my keyring as I slide behind the wheel, making the metal wink like it's sharing a secret. Each key represents a door I've helped someone open, a new chapter I've helped them start. I've never needed help finding the right key for anyone else. I find her exactly where I knew she'd be. Zoe sits on her parents' front porch, sketchbook balanced on her knees. Some habits don't change, even after 10 years. The morning sun catches the auburn highlights in her hair, and for a moment, I forget I'm supposed to be over her. She looks up at the sound of my truck door shutting, surprise flickering across her face. Twice in 2 days? The neighbors will talk. They'll talk anyway. I climb the porch steps, noting how she subtly angles her sketchbook away from view. It's what they do best. Some things never change. But there's fondness in her voice as she says it. I lean against the porch railing, trying to look casual. Like I haven't spent the morning staring at our old house plans. Like I haven't rehearsed this conversation 3 times on the drive over. How's the town treating you so far? She shrugs, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Honestly? I haven't seen much beyond my parents' house and the diner. Mom's been keeping me busy with anniversary preparations. That's a shame. I straighten, decision made. Come on. Her eyebrows draw together. Come on where? Town tour. At her skeptical look, I add, professional courtesy. One property expert to another. Ryan. She closes her sketchbook, but I catch a glimpse of familiar rooflines before she can hide them completely. I know this town. You knew this town. A lot's changed in 10 years. I pull my keys from my pocket, letting them catch the morning light. Besides, your mom mentioned you might have some thoughts about the community center renovation. Interest sparks in her eyes despite her obvious attempt to stay detached. The old Carlton place? They're finally doing something with it? Committee meets next week to review proposals. I dangle the keys like bait. I might have access to the preliminary plans. She bites her lip, and I can practically see her professional curiosity warring with her determination to keep her distance. I really shouldn't. Come on, Thompson. Live a little. I use the tone that got her to climb water towers with me to watch meteor showers back in the day. Unless you're afraid of getting your designer shoes dirty? My shoes are fine. She stands, tucking the sketchbook under one arm. And you're still terrible at reverse psychology. Still works though. She rolls her eyes, but she's fighting a smile. 1 hour. Just to see the community center plans. Whatever you say. I lead the way to my truck, opening the passenger door out of habit. She pauses before climbing in, like she remembers all the times I've done this before. All the times this was normal. We drive in silence for a few blocks, the radio humming softly beneath the sound of early summer insects. Zoe stares out the window, and I wonder what she sees. Is it the changes or the constants? The new bakery next to Novel Sips, or the familiar curve of mountains against the sky? Main Street's different, she says finally. Good different? Just different. She traces a pattern on her sketchbook cover. More boutiques, fewer empty storefronts. It looks metropolitan? I can't resist throwing her word from yesterday back at her. Living up to its potential, she corrects, but there's an edge to her voice now. The town's growing. That's good. Is it? I turn onto Cedar Street, where the old Victorian homes stand like guardians of the past. Or are we trying to be something we're not? She's quiet for a long moment. Sometimes change is necessary. And sometimes, I say, pulling into the community center parking lot, people change things because they're afraid to admit where they belong. Her head snaps toward me. Is that what you think I did? I kill the engine but don't move to get out. Did you? I built a life, Ryan. Her voice is tight. A successful one. That doesn't mean I was running from anything. Doesn't it? I turn to face her fully. Because from where I'm sitting, you got exactly what you wanted. The big city, the glamorous career, the sophisticated clients. So why do you still sound like you're trying to convince yourself? You don't know anything about my life. I know you're still drawing houses with wraparound porches and window seats. I nod toward her sketchbook. The same ones you used to dream about building here. She clutches the book tighter. That's not fair. Neither was leaving without looking back. The words come out before I can stop them, heavy with 10 years of things we'd never said. Neither was acting like this town and everyone in it was something to escape from. I never said. She stops, takes a breath. I'm not sure I belong here anymore, Ryan. Maybe I never did. Or maybe you belonged here so much it scared you. She reaches for the door handle, but I catch her wrist. Her pulse jumps beneath my fingers. Zoe. I gentle my voice, to pull us back from the edge we're teetering on. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. But you can't keep pretending this place means nothing to you. I saw your face when I mentioned the community center. I see how you look at every building we pass, like you're already redesigning it in your head. That's just habit, she whispers, but she doesn't pull away. Professional interest. Is that all it is? I release her wrist slowly. Because I think you're still looking for something. And maybe, if you stopped running long enough, you'd realize it's been here all along. She closes her eyes, and for a moment, I see the girl who used to dream bigger than this whole town. The one who made me believe we could build something lasting, something real. The one who left anyway. Show me the plans, she says finally, opening her eyes. For the community center. Show me what they want to do with it. It's not an answer to my question. But it's a start. I reach for my keys, letting the familiar weight of them ground me. After you, city girl. She shoots me a look that's half irritation, half something softer. Still terrible at reverse psychology. Still works though, I mutter, following her toward the building that holds more memories than either of us are ready to face.
Chapter 3. Zoe. This is the third property you've shown me that just happens to need extensive renovation. I eye Ryan suspiciously as he pulls up to a weathered craftsman house at the end of Maple Drive. Are you actually a real estate agent, or are you running some kind of rescue operation for abandoned buildings? His lips quirk. Can't it be both? The house sits back from the road, nestled among towering oak trees that have probably been here longer than the town itself. Late morning sunlight filters through the leaves, dappling the faded blue siding with shifting patterns. It's the kind of light that makes designers dream of window seats and reading nooks. Not that I'm designing anything. This is just professional curiosity. This one's special, Ryan says, killing the engine. He reaches into the back seat for a set of rolled-up plans. Built in 1922 by the original owner of Highland Orchards. It's been empty for about 5 years now. Let me guess. Good bones? The best. He leads the way up the cracked front walk, and I definitely don't notice how his shoulders fill out his dress shirt, or how his keys jingle with familiar purpose as he finds the right one. Most of the original features are intact. Crown molding, hardwood floors, built-in cabinets. And about $1 million in repairs, I mutter, but I'm already cataloging details. The deep front porch, with its sturdy columns. The craftsman-style windows with their distinctive gridwork. The way the roofline creates perfect symmetry against the mountain backdrop. Ryan unlocks the front door, and that's when I see the stained glass transom window above the entrance. Morning glories in deep purple and amber, their vines creating an organic frame around the edges. Oh, I breathe, stepping closer. That's original? Commissioned by the owner's wife. Ryan's voice is soft, like he's sharing a secret. She was an artist. Had a studio on the 3rd floor where she could see the orchards and the mountains while she painted. I tear my gaze away from the window to find him watching me with an expression I can't quite read. What? He shakes his head, smiling slightly. Nothing. You still get that look. What look? Like you're seeing something no one else can. He pushes the door open, gesturing for me to enter. Like you're already rebuilding it in your mind. I step into the foyer, and my designer's heart skips a beat. The space soars 2 stories high, anchored by a curved staircase that sweeps upward like a sculpture. Dust motes dance in the light streaming through the stained glass, casting jewel-toned shadows across age-dulled floors. The woodwork, I murmur, running my fingers along the handrail. Quarter-sawn oak, darkened by time, but still spectacular. This is all original? Every inch. Ryan moves past me, his arm brushing mine in the confined space. Wait until you see the library. He leads me through the house, pointing out features with the ease of someone who's walked these rooms 100 times. The formal parlor, with its coffered ceiling. The kitchen where Art Deco tiles peek through years of grime. Each room holds another surprise, another detail that makes my fingers itch for my sketchbook. The library's through here, he says, producing another key. Previous owner sealed it off to protect the built-ins from vandals. The door swings open, and I forget to breathe. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves line every wall, broken only by windows that stretch nearly as high. A window seat curves beneath the largest window, its cushions long gone, but its potential intact. Above, a circular skylight bathes the room in natural light. Ryan. His name comes out barely above a whisper. This is. I know. He leans against the doorframe, watching me turn in a slow circle. Remember that house we designed senior year? The one with the library that was supposed to feel like being inside a treehouse? You remember that? He pulls the plans he grabbed from his truck from his back pocket. When he unrolls them on a dusty side table, I realize what they are. There are drawings. The ones we spent months creating, staying late in the art room after school, dreaming up every detail of our future home. You kept these? They're good plans. He traces one of my careful sketches with a fingertip. Look familiar? I look from the drawings to the room around us, and suddenly I see it. The window seat. The circular skylight. The way the shelves curve slightly at the corners, creating an embrace of books and light. It's the same, I whisper. How did I not realize? Because you're trying so hard not to see anything that reminds you of who you used to be. I wrap my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the warm air filtering through broken window panes. Ryan, I can't. Can't what? Admit that part of you still loves this? That the girl who drew these plans isn't as gone as you pretend she is. That girl was naive. But even as I say it, my mind is racing with possibilities. The original floors could be restored. The windows reglazed. That skylight would flood the space with light, perfect for a reading nook or a small gallery. She was passionate, Ryan corrects. About design. About architecture. About creating spaces that matter. He steps closer, close enough that I can smell his cologne. The scent is woodsy and familiar, and it makes my heart stumble. About this town. It's a beautiful house, I concede, stepping back. But what's the point of showing me? I'm leaving in 2 days. Are you? He meets my eyes steadily. Because the way you're looking at this place tells a different story. I'm a designer. This is what I do. No. He rolls up the plans carefully, but his voice is anything but careful. What you do is create soulless modern spaces for clients who want to look sophisticated. This? He gestures around the room. This is what you love. Real houses with history and character. Places that tell stories. You don't know anything about my work. I know you're still drawing houses like this one. His eyes are too intense, too knowing. I saw your sketchbook this morning, remember? Window seats and wraparound porches. Built-ins and reading nooks. You're designing for Juniper Falls, Zoe. You're just too scared to admit it. I want to argue. Want to tell him he's wrong, that I'm happy with my sleek Charlotte condos and minimalist office spaces. But standing here, in a room that could have come straight from my dreams, I'm not sure I can lie convincingly enough. I have clients waiting, I say instead. Deadlines. A life I built. And what about the life you could build here? He pulls another key from his ring. This one is older than the others, its brass dulled with age. The owner's looking to sell to the right person. Property needs someone with vision. Someone who can see past what it is, to what it could be. He holds out the key, and for a moment, I'm 18 again, full of dreams and certainty. When I don't take it, he sets it on the window seat. Think about it, he says quietly. That's all I'm asking. One more stop, Ryan says as we pull into the town square. The morning has stretched toward noon, and the Saturday farmers' market is in full swing. White tents dot the green like oversized daisies, and the air smells like fresh bread and summer. Ryan. I protest, but he's already out of the truck, coming around to open my door. You need to eat. He nods toward the market. And Rose's herb bread is worth breaking your I'm just passing through stance. I remember Rose. She used to sell bouquets of herbs that looked more like wildflower arrangements, each one with a handwritten note about its culinary or medicinal uses. She's still here? Some of us like it here. But he says it with a hint of a smile, taking the edge off. The market is busy, full of familiar faces and voices that spark memories with each step. Mrs. Elliot waves from her jam stand, her charm bracelet catching the sunlight. The Jensen twins, who must be in high school now, are selling honey from their family's apiary. And there, under a bright yellow tent, is Rose, her silver-streaked hair crowned with fresh flowers, just like always. Zoe Thompson. Rose's voice carries over the market chatter. As I live and breathe. Before I can prepare myself, I'm wrapped in a hug that smells like rosemary and mint. Hi, Rose. Let me look at you. She holds me at arm's length, her eyes bright. Still got that artist spark, I see. Though you're too thin. City food doesn't agree with you? I laugh despite myself. I eat fine. Here. She presses a warm loaf of bread into my hands. Fresh from the oven. The herbs are from my garden. There's lavender, thyme, and a little something special. Rose, I can't. You can and you will. She winks at Ryan. Smart man, bringing her here. Though you always did know what was good for her, didn't you? I feel my cheeks warm, but before I can respond, another voice calls out. Zoe? Lila, the owner of Petals and Posies, hurries over, wiping her hands on her apron. She has a booth selling her famous arrangements. I thought that was you. How long are you in town? Until Monday, I say quickly, but Lila's already pulling me toward her tent. Perfect. The garden club meets Sunday, and we're planning the community center landscaping. We could use your eye. Oh, I don't. And you have to see the community center plans, Mrs. Elliot chimes in, appearing as if by magic. Such potential in that old building. We need a designer who understands its history. I find myself drawn into their circle, passing from one conversation to the next like a leaf caught in a gentle current. Everyone seems to have a project they want my opinion on, a space they think could use my touch. And despite my best efforts to maintain professional distance, I feel myself responding, suggesting colors and materials, sketching quick ideas on the back of Rose's recipe cards. Through it all, Ryan leans against a nearby lamppost, arms crossed, watching. Every time I glance his way, he has that same knowing look, like he's seeing something I'm trying hard to hide. You should see what they're planning for the community center, Rose is saying, pressing another loaf of bread into my arms. This one smells like sage and secrets. The garden designs are gorgeous. Graham has such vision. But the interior still needs someone with an eye for historical spaces. I'm sure they'll find someone, I hedge, but my mind is already rearranging the space, creating welcoming reading nooks and gathering spaces that would honor the building's character while serving the community's needs. Zoe's got her hands full in Charlotte, Ryan says, finally joining the conversation. His hand settles at the small of my back, warm and steadying. Big projects, sophisticated clients. I shoot him a look, but he just raises an eyebrow, challenging me to deny it. Well, that's nice, Rose says, but her tone suggests it's anything but. Though there's something to be said for working where your roots are. Where people know your heart. I should go. The words come out too fast. Mom needs help with party preparations, and I have some work calls. Of course, dear. Mrs. Elliot pats my arm. But do think about the library project. We're meeting Tuesday to discuss. I'll be gone by then, I remind her gently. Back to my real life. The words hang in the air like storm clouds, and I see the light dim slightly in their eyes. Ryan's hand drops from my back, and I try to ignore how cold I feel without it. Well, that's a shame. Rose wraps the second loaf of bread in brown paper, tucking a sprig of fresh lavender into the fold. But the bread will keep for a few days, and I'm here every week if you change your mind. I clutch the wrapped loaves to my chest like a shield. Thank you. For the bread. Ryan is quiet as we walk back to his truck, but I feel the weight of everything I'm not saying, everything they're not saying, pressing against my skin like summer humidity. They miss you, he says finally, opening my door. The real you. Not the polished city version you're trying so hard to be. This isn't about polish, Ryan. It's about, I stop, not sure how to explain that their warmth, their easy acceptance, scares me more than their rejection ever could. I have a life in Charlotte. You have a job in Charlotte, he corrects, but his voice is gentle. Life is something else entirely. I look down at the bread in my arms, at the lavender peeking out like a promise. Rose always said her herbs had a way of showing people what they needed, even if they didn't know they needed it. Take me home, I say softly. Please. He nods once, sharp, and starts the engine. As we pull away from the market, I look back at the cheerful tents, the familiar faces, the sense of belonging I'm trying so hard not to want.
Chapter 4. Ryan. I signal left, turning my truck onto the familiar gravel road. In the passenger seat, Zoe grabs the door handle as we start to climb, the path getting steeper with each curve. Should I be worried that you're taking me to what looks suspiciously like a makeout spot? Her tone aims for teasing but doesn't quite hit the mark. Please. This was our thinking spot, remember? I navigate around a fallen branch. Junior year, when you were stressing about college applications? Senior year, when I couldn't decide whether to take over Dad's business? You mean when you let me ramble for hours while you just sat there being annoyingly calm? But there's a softness in her voice, like she's remembering those nights too. The truck crests the final hill, and I ease into the small clearing that overlooks the valley. The late afternoon sun paints everything in gold, catching on the windows of houses below until they look like scattered stars. It hasn't changed, Zoe breathes, already reaching for the door handle. Some things shouldn't. We settle on the hood of my truck, like we used to. She's careful to leave space between us, but I still catch the scent of her shampoo. Something so familiar that makes my chest tight. I can see my parents' house from here, she says, pointing to where the old Victorian peeks through the trees. And the community center. The market square. She traces the path of Main Street with her finger. It looks so small from up here. Small isn't always bad. She pulls her knees to her chest, making herself smaller. Ryan, why did you bring me here? I study the horizon, gathering courage. Because this is where we used to be honest with each other. Really honest. And now? Now I think we've both gotten too good at saying what we think we should, instead of what we mean. The wind rustles through the pine trees behind us, carrying the scent of wild mountain laurel. In the valley below, lights are starting to come on as dusk approaches, each one a tiny beacon of home. That day you left, I say finally, I stood in your driveway for an hour after you drove away. Kept thinking if I waited long enough, you'd turn around and come back. She makes a soft sound, like I've heard her. Ryan. Let me finish. Please. I run a hand through my hair, a nervous habit I thought I'd broken. I was so sure we had it all figured out. The house we'd build, the life we'd make. When you left, it wasn't just about losing you. It was about losing faith in everything I thought I knew. I never meant. I know. You had dreams. Big ones. I turned to look at her, really look at her. The sunset paints her profile in soft gold. Watching you chase them made me doubt mine. Made me wonder if wanting this, I gesture to the town below, meant I wasn't dreaming big enough. She's quiet for a long moment, and I wonder if I've said too much. When she speaks, her voice is barely above a whisper. Is that why you became a real estate agent? To prove something? The question catches me off guard with its insight. Maybe at first. Then I started helping people find their homes here. Started seeing the town through their eyes, all its potential, its character. And I realized something. What? That sometimes the biggest dreams are the ones that bring you back to where you started. I pull my keyring from my pocket, running my thumb over the familiar ridges. Every key on here represents someone's dream of home. And yeah, maybe that's not as flashy as designing high-rises in Charlotte, but it matters. It's real. Your dreams were always real, Ryan. She reaches out, her fingers brushing mine where they rest on the keys. I'm sorry if I made you feel like they weren't. The touch sends warmth spreading through my chest, but I force myself to stay still. I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty. I take a breath. I need you to understand that staying wasn't settling. It was choosing. Every day, I choose this town, these people, this life. And I'm proud of that choice. She's quiet again, but she doesn't move her hand from mine. Below us, more lights flicker on, creating constellations of windows and street lamps against the deepening sky. Show me, she says suddenly. Show you what? Your favorite sail. The one that made you sure this was what you were meant to do. I smile, remembering. The Marshall Place, over on Pine Street. Young couple, first home. They looked at 43 houses before finding it. 43? He wanted a garage workshop. She needed a studio with natural light. Their budget was tight, and everyone told them they'd have to compromise. I point to a craftsman bungalow just visible through the trees. But that house? It had this old carriage house out back, perfect for converting. And a sunroom that just needed some TLC. When they walked in, I could see it in their eyes. They said it felt like coming home. You remember all of them, don't you? Her voice is soft with something that might be understanding. All the houses, All the stories. Like you remember every design you've ever drawn. I look down at where her fingers still rest on mine. Some things are just part of who you are. She takes a shaky breath. When did you get so wise? About the same time you got so scared of admitting what you really want. She starts to pull away, but I catch her hand, threading our fingers together. Zoe. Look at me. When she does, I see everything she's trying to hide, the longing, the uncertainty, the fear of wanting something she thought she'd outgrown. I'm not that boy anymore, I say quietly. The one who thought he could make you stay just by loving you enough. And you're not that girl, running from a future she thought was too small. I squeeze her hand gently. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. A shooting star streaks across the darkening sky, and for a moment, we're 17 again, full of dreams and certainty. But when she looks at me this time, it's different. Like she's seeing past the boy she left behind to the man I've become. Maybe, she whispers. A little higher on the left. Zoe stands in the middle of her parents' backyard, head tilted as she studies the string of lights we're hanging. The evening breeze lifts strands of hair from her ponytail, and I force myself to focus on the latter instead of how the sunset makes her eyes look more gold than hazel. I adjust the strand, securing it to the oak tree that's hosted 3 decades of Thompson family celebrations. Better? Perfect. She makes a note on her clipboard. Something she insisted on after discovering her mother's decoration plans consisted of 3 pages of scattered sticky notes. Next, we need to figure out the tables. Already done. I climb down, brushing bark from my hands. Your dad and I set them up this morning while you were at the market. 8-person rounds, like your mom wanted. She blinks at me in surprise. You helped Dad with the tables? And the chairs. And moving the china cabinet to make room for the cake table. I shrug, like it's nothing. Like I haven't been helping her father with projects since I was 12 and eager to learn how to use power tools. Someone had to do the heavy lifting. Thank you. Her voice is soft, and when I look up, she's watching me with an expression that makes my chest tight. For helping them, I mean. Mom said you've been around a lot since I left. They're good people. I gather up the extra light strands, needing something to do with my hands. Your dad taught me everything I know about home repair. And your mom still tries to feed everyone within a 10-mile radius? Made sure I had dinner at least once a week after my dad passed. The words come out before I can stop them. Said she couldn't let her favorite handyman waste away. Zoe's quiet for a moment, and I know she's remembering the days when he first got sick. How her parents' kitchen became a refuge when my own house felt too empty. How her mother always seemed to have an extra plate ready, just in case. Mom's pot roast, she says finally, a smile tugging at her lips. Sunday nights. And apple crisp for dessert. I stack the empty light boxes, avoiding her eyes. Until you went through your vegan phase junior year and she had to learn how to make something called aquafaba mousse. Her laugh catches us both by surprise. That stuff was horrible. Poor Mom, she tried so hard. Your dad still ate it. He insisted it was delicious. Dad would eat cardboard if it meant supporting one of my phases. She shakes her head, but her eyes are soft. They're really good parents, aren't they? I didn't always see it. They're the best. I hesitate, then add, they never stopped believing in you, you know. Even when you stopped believing in this place. She sets her clipboard on a nearby table, closer to where I'm standing than strictly necessary. I think I was wrong about a lot of things. The admission hangs between us like the fairy lights overhead, delicate and full of possibility. Before I can respond, her mother calls from the kitchen. Zoe? Can you help me with these centerpieces? Coming! She starts to turn, then pauses. Want to help? Fair warning, it probably involves Mom's extensive collection of mason jars and whatever flowers Mrs. Elliot brought over. Wouldn't miss it. The kitchen is organized chaos when we walk in, every surface covered with flowers and ribbon and 30 years of collected mason jars. Mrs. Thompson stands in the middle of it all, reading glasses perched on her nose as she consults a magazine clipping. "Oh good, you're both here." She hands me a jar without looking up. "These need ribbon. The blue one, not the silver. Zoe, honey, start on the hydrangeas. And tell me if you think we need more baby's breath." We fall into an easy rhythm, Zoe arranging flowers while I tie ribbons that never seem quite symmetrical enough. Our hands brush when she passes me jars, and each time, I feel that same spark of awareness. Of possibility. "Remember when you two made centerpieces for the junior prom?" Mrs. Thompson asks, sorting through ribbon scraps. "What was that theme again?" "Starry Night," Zoe answers, just as I say, "Don't remind me." "That's right. You spent hours wrapping those little lights around branches." Her mother's eyes twinkle with mischief. Though as I recall, not much decorating got done that night. "Mom." Zoe's cheeks flush pink, and I remember exactly why we didn't finish those centerpieces. How she'd had paint smudged on her cheek from the backdrop we were supposed to be working on. How she'd looked in the glow of those tiny lights. I clear my throat. These ribbons aren't going to tie themselves. Mrs. Thompson hums knowingly and disappears into the pantry, leaving us alone in a kitchen full of flowers and memories. "Your bow is crooked," Zoe says after a moment, setting down her shears. She steps closer, reaching for the jar in my hands. Her fingers brush mine as she adjusts the ribbon, and I catch that familiar scent of her shampoo. "Better?" I ask, and my voice comes out lower than I intended. She looks up, and suddenly we're standing too close, surrounded by hydrangeas and possibility. A drop of water slides down the mason jar between us, landing on our still touching fingers. "Much," she whispers, but neither of us is looking at the ribbon anymore. For a moment, I think about closing that small distance. About finding out if she still tastes like strawberry lip gloss and dreams. About found the silver ribbon, Mrs. Thompson announces, returning with an armful of supplies. "Though the blue does look better, doesn't it?" Zoe steps back quickly, nearly knocking over a vase of baby's breath. "I should check on the light strands. Make sure they're secure before it gets dark." She's gone before I can respond, leaving me holding a jar with a perfectly straight bow and the ghost of her touch on my skin. Mrs. Thompson watches her go, then turns to me with knowing eyes. "You know, Ryan, sometimes the best things in life need a second chance to bloom." "These centerpieces need more baby's breath," I say, because it's easier than examining the hope taking root in my chest.
Chapter 5. Zoe. Last dance? Ryan's hand is warm against the small of my back as Ed Sheeran's Perfect plays through the speakers. Most of the guests have already left, but fairy lights still twinkle in the oak trees, casting a gentle glow across the remains of my parents' anniversary celebration. I should say no. Should help Mom pack up leftover cake and collect scattered champagne glasses. Instead, I step closer, letting my cheek rest against his shoulder. He still smells faintly of summer air and that cologne I've been trying not to notice all night. "You're getting better at this," I murmur as he guides us in a slow circle. "Remember junior prom? When you stepped on my feet 3 times during one song?" His chest rumbles with quiet laughter. "In my defense, you were wearing very impractical shoes. They were 2-inch heels." "Exactly. Impractical." We sway in comfortable silence, and I try not to think about how perfectly we still fit together. How easy it would be to pretend the last 10 years never happened. The song fades out, but neither of us moves to step away. In the distance, crickets have taken over the night's melody, accompanied by the soft clink of dishes as my parents clean up inside. "I should go," Ryan says finally, but his arms stay around me. "Early showing tomorrow. I'll walk you to your truck." The words come out before I can overthink them. He pulls back just enough to study my face in the fairy lights. "You don't have to." "I want to." The weight of those 2 words hangs between us as we cross the moonlit yard. We're almost to his truck when he stops suddenly. "Up for a midnight ride?" I look up at him, at the expression in his eyes that makes my heart stumble. Ryan. One quick stop before I take you back. There's something I want to show you. He holds out his hand, and despite every logical argument against it, I take it. Where are we going? He opens the passenger door with a smile that makes me feel 17 again. You'll see. I slide into the familiar leather seat, surrounded by the subtle pine scent of his truck's air freshener. We drive in comfortable silence, the radio humming softly beneath the sound of summer insects. It's only when he turns onto Maple Drive that I realize where we're headed. The Craftsman House? I sit up straighter, my heart doing a funny little skip. Ryan, it's almost midnight. Best time to see it. He pulls into the gravel drive, killing the engine. In the sudden silence, I can hear crickets chirping and the distant hoot of an owl. Trust me? The question carries more weight than it should. I nod, not trusting my voice. The house looks different in the moonlight. Softer somehow, its weathered edges smoothed by shadow. Ryan produces a flashlight along with his keys, and the beam catches on the stained glass transom, making the morning glories dance with borrowed light. Careful of the third step, he says as we climb the porch stairs. It's loose. Inside, our footsteps echo on the hardwood floors. The flashlight beam sweeps across elaborate crown molding, built-in cabinets, the curved staircase I haven't been able to stop thinking about since he first showed me the house. This way. He leads me to the library, and I inhale sharply. The room is transformed by moonlight pouring through the tall windows, turning the empty bookshelves into silver sculptures. The circular skylight above frames a perfect circle of stars. It's even more beautiful at night, I whisper, not wanting to break the spell. I come here sometimes. Ryan's voice is low, intimate in the darkness. When I need to think. About what? He's quiet for a moment, and I hear him set the flashlight on a shelf, pointing up to cast a soft glow around the room. About potential. About what this place could be. Ryan. I've had 14 offers on this house. He moves to the window seat, our window seat, the one we designed together a lifetime ago. Good offers. Solid buyers who could afford the renovation costs. My heart stumbles. Why didn't it sell? Because none of them saw it. He turns to face me, and the moonlight catches in his eyes. None of them walked in and immediately started sketching window seats and reading nooks. None of them looked at a dusty old library and saw magic. I'm leaving tomorrow, I remind him, but my feet carry me closer anyway. Are you? He reaches into his pocket and pulls out that old brass key, the one he showed me before. Because I've been holding on to this house for 2 years, telling myself I was waiting for the right buyer. But maybe. He takes a step toward me. Maybe I was just waiting for you to come home. So we can make an offer. That's not fair. But my voice shakes, and we both hear it. I know. He holds out the key. Take it anyway. I can't. You can. Whether you stay or go, whether you want the house or not. Take it. His eyes hold mine in the darkness. Consider it a reminder that some doors don't close just because we walk away from them. My fingers close around the key, and it's warm from being in his pocket. Like it's been waiting for me all this time. I see it too, I whisper. What? The magic. I look around the moonlit room, at the perfect proportions we used to dream about. I've been seeing it everywhere since I came back. In the community center's possibilities. In Mom and Dad's backyard tonight, with all those lights we hung. In this room, with its stories and its stars, and I trail off as I realize how close we're standing. Close enough to see the subtle flecks of gray in his blue eyes. Close enough to catch the scent of his cologne mixed with summer air. And, he prompts softly. And in the way you look at this town. At these old houses. I swallow hard. At me. The key presses into my palm as my fingers curl around it. All those doors we've opened and closed between us. All those chances we didn't take. Ryan? I'm going to do something impulsive now. A smile tugs at his lips. Wouldn't be the first time. I rise up on my toes, sliding my free hand around the back of his neck. His skin is warm, familiar in a way that makes my heart ache. For a moment, I hesitate, caught between the girl I was and the woman I've become. Then I kiss him. He makes a soft sound of surprise before his arms come around me, pulling me closer. The key digs into my palm where my hands are pressed against his chest, but I barely notice. All I can focus on is how right this feels. How much like coming home. When we finally break apart, we're both breathing hard. Through the skylight, a shooting star streaks across the circle of night sky. It's like the universe itself is offering a sign. Stay, Ryan whispers against my hair. Not a demand, just a quiet hope. Not for me. Not even for your parents. Stay because this place is part of who you are. Because you see the magic too. I close my eyes, feeling the weight of the key in my hand. The weight of possibilities. Of doors waiting to be opened. I don't know if I can, I admit. His arms tighten slightly. That's not a no. No, I agree softly, looking up at the stars through our skylight. It's not a no at all. I sit on the porch swing, gently rocking in the late-night breeze. The fairy lights still twinkle in the oak trees, but the yard is empty now, the only evidence of the party being a few forgotten champagne glasses catching moonlight on scattered tables. My lips still tingle from Ryan's kiss. I pull the old brass key from my pocket, turning it over in my hands. The metal still feels warm to my touch, like it's trying to convince me it belongs there. Like I belong here. The screen door creaks, and Mom appears with 2 steaming mugs. I thought you might need this. She hands me chamomile tea with honey, just like she used to make when I couldn't sleep before big tests or art shows. Thanks. I curl my hands around the warm ceramic. I thought you and Dad would be asleep. Hard to sleep when your only daughter is having an existential crisis on the front porch. She settles beside me on the swing, and for a moment, we just rock together, listening to the night sounds of crickets and distant owls. I'm not having a crisis. She takes a sip of her tea. No? Then what's that key you've been staring at for the past 20 minutes? I close my fingers around it, feeling the ridges press into my palm. It's nothing. A possibility. She's quiet for a moment. You know, when your father and I moved into this house, everyone thought we were crazy. Too big, too old, too many problems to fix. But you loved it anyway. We saw what it could be. She reaches over to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear, just like she used to when I was little. Kind of like how a certain someone sees what that old craftsman on Maple could be. Heat rushes to my cheeks. You know about that? Honey, Ryan's been watching over that house like a guardian angel for 2 years. Turning down perfectly good offers because they weren't right. She gives me a knowing look. Though I suppose we know now what he was waiting for. Mom. You kissed him, didn't you? I nearly choke on my tea. How did you? Please. She pats my knee. I've known that boy since he was 12 years old. I saw his face when he left tonight. And yours. The porch swing creaks gently as I shift, trying to find words for the tangle of emotions in my chest. I have a life in Charlotte. Clients, projects, deadlines. And none of that would have to change if you didn't want it to. Dad's voice makes us both jump. He's standing in the doorway, still in his dress shirt from the party, but with the sleeves rolled up. You do know we have internet here now, right? Indoor plumbing too. Very funny. But I smile as he settles into the porch chair across from us. What your father is trying to say, Mom shoots him a look, is that coming home doesn't mean giving up your dreams. Sometimes it just means letting them grow in a different direction. I'm scared, I whisper, finally admitting what's been churning beneath the surface since I first drove past the Welcome to Juniper Falls sign. What if I stay, and it's a mistake? What if I give up everything I built and it doesn't work out? What if it does? Dad leans forward, his expression serious. What if staying turns out to be the best decision you've ever made? You won't know unless you're brave enough to try. The thing about roots, Mom adds softly, is that they don't keep you from growing. They give you something to grow from. I looked down at the key in my hand, thinking about the moonlit library and the way Ryan looked at me when he said maybe he'd been waiting for me to come home. He still has our house plans, I say, not meeting their eyes. The ones we drew in high school. He kept them all this time. Some dreams are worth holding on to. Dad stands, dropping a kiss on top of my head. Even if they take a while to come true. Trust yourself, honey. Mom squeezes my hand as she rises. And maybe trust the people who've never stopped believing in you, even when you stopped believing in yourself. They leave me alone with my cooling tea and the weight of possibilities in my palm. In the distance, a shooting star streaks across the sky. It's the second one I've seen tonight. Like the universe is trying to tell me something. Or maybe it's not the universe at all. Maybe it's just my heart, finally admitting what it's known all along. I pull out my phone, looking at the Charlotte number I'm supposed to call in the morning. The client who wants their entire house done in minimalist gray and white, no character, no soul. Just clean lines and empty spaces. Then I look at the key again, imagining morning glories in stained glass and window seats perfect for reading. Imagining a life built on dreams that have roots instead of wings.
Chapter 6. Ryan. The community center's front steps need work. I'm making notes about the loose boards when I hear Zoe's voice drift through an open window, and my heart does that familiar skip before I remember I'm supposed to be keeping my distance. I don't know, Megan. She sounds tired. It's complicated. I should walk away. Should get in my truck and drive to the showing I have scheduled in 20 minutes. Instead, I find myself frozen on the steps, her words floating down like autumn leaves. Of course I'm considering it. The house is incredible, and Ryan. She pauses, and I hold my breath. But my whole life is in Charlotte. My clients, my reputation. I can't just throw that away because of one kiss. The pencil snaps in my hand. I know. But what if I stay and it all falls apart? What if she stops abruptly and I hear footsteps approaching the window? I have to go. I'll call you later. I'm halfway to my truck when her voice calls out behind me. Ryan? What are you doing here? Taking the coward's way out isn't an option, so I turn, fixing my face into what I hope is a neutral expression. Property assessment. For the renovation committee. Oh! She steps out onto the porch, and seeing her in the morning light. Her hair is messy from running her fingers through it, and I see the familiar crease between her eyebrows. I was hoping to talk to you about some ideas I had for the interior. I have a showing. The words come out clipped, professional. Send any suggestions to the committee. They'll review all proposals next week. She blinks, taken aback by my tone. Ryan? Was there something else? What's wrong? She takes a step closer, and I force myself not to back away. You're acting strange. Nothing strange. I'm just busy. I pull out my keys, needing something to do with my hands. Some of us have work to do here. Real work, not just theoretical plans that may or may not happen. Her eyes narrow. What is that supposed to mean? It means I have clients waiting. People who are actually committed to making a life here, not just playing around with the idea when it's convenient. Playing around? Color rises in her cheeks. Is that what you think I'm doing? I think you're doing exactly what you always do. The words taste bitter, but I can't seem to stop them. Dreaming up beautiful plans that you have no intention of following through on. That's not fair. Isn't it? I gesture to the community center behind her. You've spent days sketching ideas for this place. Getting everyone excited about your vision. But the minute it gets real, the minute someone asks you to actually commit. You were listening to my phone call. It's not a question. Not intentionally. But I hurt enough. She crosses her arms, and I see the hurt flash across her face before anger replaces it. So that's it? You overhear half a conversation and decide you know exactly what I'm thinking? I don't need to hear the whole conversation. I've heard it all before, remember? I take a step closer, close enough to see the gold flecks in her eyes. 10 years ago, standing in your parents' driveway. It's complicated, Ryan. I can't just throw away my dreams, Ryan. That's not what this is. No? I laugh, but there's no humor in it. Then what is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly the same. You, with one foot out the door. Me, stupid enough to think maybe this time would be different. You don't get to do this. Her voice shakes slightly. You don't get to punish me for being scared. For having doubts. Doubts? I spread my arms wide, taking in the town around us. This is who I am, Zoe. This town, these old buildings, these people, they're not just some design project you can walk away from when something better comes along. Is that really what you think of me? She takes a step back, and the hurt in her eyes feels like a physical blow. That I'm just using this place? Using you? I think you're doing what you've always been good at. I reach for my professional mask, the one that keeps clients at a safe distance. Creating beautiful dreams that look perfect on paper but fall apart in reality. Wow. She wraps her arms around herself, and I hate that I can still read her defensive postures so well. Well, thank you for making this decision easier. Glad I could help. I turn toward my truck, because if I look at her for one more second, I might take it all back. Might beg her to stay, to give us a real chance. You know what's funny? Her voice stops me with my hand on the door handle. I actually convinced myself that you changed. That you'd grown into someone who could handle more than black and white, someone who could understand that being scared doesn't mean not wanting something. I close my eyes, feeling the weight of her words like stones. But I guess we both believe what we wanted to believe. I hear her steps on the gravel, moving away. Good luck with your showing, Ryan. I hope whoever's buying is committed enough for you. The door of the community center closes behind her with a quiet click that somehow hurts more than if she'd slammed it. I stand there for a long moment, keys digging into my palm, trying to convince myself this is for the best. Better to end it now, before I let myself believe in possibilities that were never real. The Juniper Falls Cemetery sits on a gentle slope overlooking the valley, white headstones catching late afternoon sun like scattered memories. I park in my usual spot, the gravel crunching under my boots as I make my way down the familiar path. Hey, Dad. I crouch beside the weathered granite, brushing away fallen leaves. Sorry it's been a while. The stone is warm from the sun, and I run my fingers over the engraved dates as I've done 100 times before. James Michael Carter, beloved husband and father. Gone too soon, just like everything else I've ever tried to hold on to. I messed up. The words feel heavy in the quiet air. Remember how you always said I had a talent for real estate because I could see the potential in broken things? Turns out I'm pretty good at breaking them myself. A mourning dove calls from somewhere nearby, its soft coo carrying on the breeze. She came back, Dad. After all this time, Zoe came home. And instead of being grateful, instead of showing her all the reasons to stay, I shake my head, remembering the hurt in her eyes. I pushed her away. You know, some people think talking to headstones is a sign of madness. Jack Thompson's voice makes me start. He's standing a few rows over, a bouquet of wildflowers in his hands. But I figure they don't understand about fathers and sons. I start to stand, but he waves me back down. Don't get up on my account. I'm just paying my respects to my old man. He sets the flowers on a nearby grave. Mind if I join you for a minute? I nod, not trusting my voice. He settles onto the grass beside me with a grunt that reminds me he's not as young as he used to be. Your dad was a good man, he says after a moment. Taught you everything he knew about property values and fixing things up. But I'm thinking maybe he didn't get a chance to teach you the most important lesson. Which was that sometimes the things worth holding onto are the ones that scare us the most. I look down at my hands, calloused from years of working on old houses. She's leading again. Is she? There's something in his tone that makes me look up. Or are you just making that decision for her? I heard her on the phone. She was talking about her life in Charlotte, her clients. Ah. He plucks a blade of grass, twirling it between his fingers. You know, when I met Caroline's father for the first time, he told me I'd never be able to give her the life she deserved. Said a small-town store owner couldn't possibly make his daughter happy. But you proved him wrong. No. He smiles slightly. Caroline proved him wrong. By choosing what she wanted, not what everyone else thought she should want. He gives me a pointed look. The trick was, I had to let her choose. Had to trust that what we had was strong enough to survive her having options. It's not the same. Isn't it? He stands, brushing grass from his khakis. You know what the difference is between holding on and holding back, son? I shake my head. Holding on means believing in something enough to give it room to grow. Holding back? He pats my shoulder. That's just another word for fear. He starts to walk away, then pauses. She left this morning, you know. Said she needed to get back for some client meeting tomorrow. He turns back, his expression gentle but pointed. Though if someone were to drive down to Charlotte today, they might catch her before she gets too settled back into that city life of hers. I stare after him as he disappears down the path, his words echoing in my mind. Holding on versus holding back. Options versus obligations. Fear versus faith. He's right, isn't he? I turn back to Dad's headstone. You always said I had your stubborn streak. But Mom's heart too. I touch the warm granite one more time. I think maybe it's time I started using it. Standing, I pull out my phone and the business card I've been carrying since Zoe first came home. The one for her design firm in Charlotte. I have to go, Dad. I look out over the valley, where the setting sun paints the mountains in shades of possibility. There's something I need to do before I lose my nerve. Before I lose everything that matters.
Chapter 7. Zoe. My office in Charlotte is everything I've ever wanted. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Sleek white furniture that perfectly matches the minimalist aesthetic my clients love. Awards lined up on floating shelves, proof that I've made it in the design world. So why does it suddenly feel so empty? I pull the brass key from my bag and run my thumb over its worn edges. I should have left it behind in Juniper Falls. Or never accepted it in the first place. In the morning light streaming through my windows, it looks out of place against the glass and chrome of my desk. Too much character. Too much history. Too much like home. Stop it, I mutter, shoving the key back in my bag. I have a client meeting in 10 minutes. No time for nostalgia about craftsman houses with morning glory windows and libraries full of moonlight and... My desk phone buzzes. Ms. Thompson? The Prestons are here. Send them in. I straighten my already straight desk accessories, settling my professional mask in place. Claire Preston sweeps in wearing designer everything, her husband trailing behind with their toddler squirming in his arms. Zoe, darling. We're so excited to see what you've done with our concept. I pull up the digital renderings I spent all night working on. As we discussed, I've kept everything clean and modern. The open concept living area flows into a minimalist kitchen with waterfall countertops. Oh yes, Claire nods approvingly as I click through the images. Very Instagram-worthy. Though. She frowns at one render. Is that a window seat? It feels a bit provincial. My finger freezes on the mouse. The window seat had slipped in without my conscious thought, curved and cozy like the one in the craftsman's library. Like the ones Ryan and I used to dream about. That's easily removed, I hear myself say. We can do a floating bench instead. More contemporary. Perfect. Claire claps her hands. We want this house to make a statement. Nothing quaint or cutesy. I want everything sleek and sophisticated. Their daughter squirms free from her father's arms and toddles over to the windows. She presses her tiny hands against the glass, leaving smudgy prints that would have driven me crazy a week ago. Look, Mommy. She points excitedly. Birds. Yes, dear. Zoe, about the kitchen, we were thinking all white. Absolutely no warm tones. I watch the little girl, her face full of wonder at something as simple as birds on a window ledge. She reminds me of myself only a few years older than her, drawing house plans in the margins of my school books. Dreams full of window seats and reading nooks and places that felt like more than just carefully curated spaces. Ms. Thompson? Claire's voice breaks through my thoughts. The kitchen? I can't do this. The words come out before I can stop them. I beg your pardon? I stand, my chair rolling back with perhaps more force than necessary. I'm sorry, but I don't think I'm the right designer for your project. But you're the best. Everyone says so. I'm good at what I do, I agree, gathering my courage. But what I do isn't what you need. You need someone who believes in creating showpieces. I pick up my sketchbook, the one full of craftsman details and wraparound porches. I believe in creating homes. I don't understand. Claire looks genuinely puzzled. Isn't that the same thing? No. I smile, feeling lighter than I have since I left Juniper Falls. It's really not. After they leave, I pull out the key again. In the late morning sun, it doesn't look out of place anymore. It looks exactly like what it is. A chance to build something real. My computer chimes with an email notification. Another potential client, their budget bigger than anything I've handled before. The kind of project that could cement my reputation in Charlotte's design world. I close the laptop without looking at it. I spread out my sketchbook, pages full of the craftsman house renovations I couldn't stop myself from drawing. The updated library with space for community readings. The sunroom perfect for year-round gardening. The kitchen where my parents could host Sunday dinners. My hand shakes slightly as I reach for my phone. 3 voice messages from my assistant, one from a potential investor, and a text from Ryan sent the day I left. Some doors are worth walking through, even if they scare you. I close my eyes, remembering moonlight through stained glass and the way he looked at me in that library. Remembering how it felt to design spaces that mattered, for people who mattered. When I open them again, I know what I have to do. Jenny? I press the intercom button. Cancel my appointments for the rest of the week. I look around my perfectly curated office, at all the awards that suddenly mean less than one old brass key. Start calling my clients. I need to tell them about some changes. Changes? She sounds worried. Is everything okay? I run my fingers over the key one more time, feeling its ridges like a map leading me home. No, I say softly. But it's going to be. That's the last of the design portfolios. I close the cardboard box, adding it to the growing stack by my office door. Who knew 10 years of life in Charlotte could be packed away so quickly? The awards are already bubble-wrapped, the client files transferred to my laptop. All that's left is. You're taking down the window seat sketch? My heart stops at the sound of that familiar voice. When I turn, Ryan is leaning against my doorframe, looking somehow both perfectly at home and completely out of place in his flannel shirt and worn jeans. Ryan? My voice comes out embarrassingly breathy. What are you doing here? How did you get in? Your assistant let me up. He steps into the office, glancing around at the half-packed boxes. Though I think she was a little suspicious of the guy in work boots asking for the city's top designer. I'm not, I stop, taking him in. There are shadows under his eyes, like he's been driving all night. Why are you here? He pulls something from behind his back. It's a roll of papers, tied with a faded blue ribbon. Because I was wrong. About what? About everything. He moves closer, close enough that I catch the scent of coffee and pine that always clings to him. About you running away. About what it means to stay somewhere. He sets the roll of papers on my desk. About what makes a place home. My fingers shake slightly as I untie the ribbon. When I unroll the papers, I recognize them immediately. They are our old house plans, the ones we drew in high school. But there are new additions, careful pencil marks showing changes. You updated them? He nods, moving to stand beside me. See here? He points to what used to be a simple home office. I made it bigger, added north-facing windows for the best natural light. Perfect for a design studio. Ryan. And this? He flips to another page. The library could double as a client meeting space. Those built-ins we planned would showcase your portfolio pieces. And this breakfast nook. His finger traces the curved window seat. Still has the best view of the mountains. You did all this? I look up at him, finding his eyes intense on mine. When? Last night. Couldn't sleep. His smile is self-deprecating. Turns out letting you walk away twice would have been the biggest mistake of my life. I was coming back. The words tumble out before I can stop them. I was literally packing to drive back to Juniper Falls. He blinks. You were? Yes. I gesture to the boxes around us. What did you think all this was? He runs a hand through his hair, making it stand up in that way that always made my fingers itch to smooth it. I thought maybe you were just reorganizing. I had this whole speech planned about how I'd move here if that's what you wanted. Help you find historic properties to renovate in Charlotte. Because home isn't about where you are, it's who you're with, I finish softly. Yeah. He reaches out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. Though I have to admit, I'm kind of glad you were already planning to come back. The Charlotte real estate market terrifies me. A laugh bubbles up in my chest, half joy and half relief. So what you're saying is, you came all this way to dramatically win me back, and I ruined it by already choosing you. Pretty much. His hands settle on my waist, drawing me closer. Though I did bring the house plans. That's got to count for something. The house plans that you updated to include my design studio? I slide my arms around his neck. Very smooth, Mr. Carter. I thought so. His smile fades into something more serious. I'm sorry, Zoe. For not trusting that you needed time to figure things out. For letting my fears get the better of me. I rise up on my toes and kiss him, effectively cutting off his apology. He makes a surprised sound before pulling me closer, one hand sliding into my hair as the kiss deepens. When we finally break apart, we're both breathing hard. So, he says, resting his forehead against mine. Does this mean you like the updated plans? They're perfect. I steal another quick kiss. Though I do have one suggestion. Only one? I'm shocked. I smack his chest lightly. The studio space? It needs a door connecting it to the library. So I can move between work and home without going outside in the winter. Already drawn in. He reaches past me to flip to the last page. See? Great minds. Great minds who are finally on the same page? Something like that. He pulls back just enough to meet my eyes. Come home with me, Zoe. Not because you have to, but because you want to. Because maybe we can build something better together than we ever could apart. I look around my sleek office with its city views and modern furniture. Then down at our house plans, with their window seats and reading nooks and spaces designed for real life. Actually, I say, reaching for my purse and the Craftsman House key inside, I think I'd rather we drive home together. His smile is like sunrise breaking over the mountains. Yeah? Yeah. I lean up to kiss him one more time, just because I can. Let's go home. As we gather the last of my boxes, I catch a glimpse of our reflection in the window, the city girl and the small town boy, finally getting it right. Behind us, the house plans sit rolled on my desk, waiting to become reality. Some dreams, it turns out, just need a little renovation to become perfect.
Epilogue. Ryan. Juniper Falls, 3 months later. The restoration maintained all the original Victorian charm while incorporating modern amenities. I lead another group of potential buyers through what used to be the Thompsons' formal living room. Crown molding, pocket doors, and hardwood floors are all original to 1890, but you'll find updated electrical and a state-of-the-art HVAC system throughout. A couple from Atlanta exchanges impressed looks as they take in the space. The room that once displayed 3 decades of Thompson family photos now shows like a magazine spread, though if you know where to look, you can still see the slight dip in the floorboards where Jack's recliner sat for 30 years. The designer did an incredible job blending old and new, the wife says, running her hand along the restored woodwork. Who handled the renovation? That would be me. Zoe steps in with perfect timing, as if she hasn't been hovering nearby all afternoon, making sure every detail is perfect for her parents' house. We wanted to honor the home's history while creating functional spaces for modern living. I hide a smile as the couple gravitates toward her. She's wearing a tailored suit that speaks to her Charlotte success, but there's softness in her eyes when she looks around the room where she grew up. The kitchen was completely reimagined. I continue as we move through the house, while keeping architectural elements like the butler's pantry and original built-ins. We restored all the cabinet hardware by hand, Zoe adds, and I hear the unspoken story. How her father spent weekends helping us strip decades of paint from brass fixtures, telling stories about the day he and Caroline first saw the house. The Atlanta couple asks intelligent questions about the renovation choices, and Zoe shifts seamlessly into designer mode, discussing material selections and space planning. We've gotten good at this dance over the past year. My market expertise and her design vision create something greater than either of us could achieve alone. A noise from the foyer draws my attention, and I spot Jack and Caroline slipping in for a quick peek at the open house. They're trying to be discreet, but I see Caroline's hand tighten on her husband's arm as they take in their transformed home. Zoe sees them too. She falters slightly mid-sentence, but recovers quickly. The breakfast nook features restored Victorian windows that flood the space with natural light. I step closer, ostensibly to point out the window features, but really to brush my hand against her back in silent support. She leans into the touch for just a moment before continuing her explanation of the custom window treatments. The afternoon continues in a steady stream of potential buyers. I handle the property details and market analysis while Zoe discusses renovation choices and design possibilities. Every time our eyes meet across a room, I see the same mix of professional pride and personal understanding reflected back at me. Final showing in 10 minutes, I tell her during a brief quiet moment. We're alone in the entry hall where, a few months ago, I watched her come home for her parents' anniversary. Good turnout. She straightens a frame holding the before and after photos. That couple from Atlanta seemed serious. They're making an offer. I smile at her carefully neutral expression. Don't worry, I made sure they know about the Christmas cookie exchange tradition with the neighbors. She laughs softly, but her eyes are suspiciously bright. Mom will be glad to hear that. She glances around the foyer, at the stairs she once slid down as a kid. It's weird, isn't it? Selling your childhood home? Good weird or bad weird? Just weird. She smooths an imaginary wrinkle from her sleeve. Though it helps knowing Mom and Dad are excited about downsizing. And that we made this place ready for a new family to love it. I think about the key in my pocket. Not to this house, but to another one. A craftsman with morning glory windows and a library perfect for dreaming. But that's a revelation for another day. Speaking of new places to love, she says, as if reading my thoughts, that box in your truck isn't as well hidden as you think. Before I can respond, voices carry up from the porch. Our final showing arriving. Later, she whispers, already moving to greet them with her professional smile back in place. I watch her go, thinking about how sometimes the best endings are really beginnings in disguise. about how sometimes letting go of one dream makes room for an even better one. You know, Zoe says as I guide my truck up the familiar gravel road, for someone who just helped sell a house, you're being awfully mysterious about where we're going. Maybe I just want to celebrate a successful open house. I navigate around the same fallen branch that's been there since high school, the path getting steeper with each curve. At sunset? On our overlook? She gives me a sidelong glance. Very smooth, Carter. I grin, trying to ignore the way my heart pounds against my ribs. The ring box feels like it's burning a hole in my pocket, but it's the key beside it that really matters. The key to everything. The clearing looks exactly like it did that night a year ago when I finally started being honest with her. And myself. The setting sun paints the valley in shades of gold, catching on the windows of houses below until they look like scattered stars. I love this view, Zoe says softly as we settle on the hood of my truck. You can see everything from up here. The community center, the farmer's market. She points to where her parents' Victorian stands proud among its neighbors. Look over there. I guide her attention to the edge of town, where a certain craftsman house sits waiting. Remember that property? The one with the morning glory windows? Her voice goes soft. How could I forget? That's where I finally got the courage to kiss you. And where I almost let my fears ruin everything. I take her hand, threading our fingers together. But you want to know something interesting about that house? What? I pull the key from my pocket, holding it up so it catches the last rays of sunlight. It just got new owners. She stares at the key, then at me, her eyes wide. Ryan. I closed on it yesterday. I turn to face her fully, heart hammering. Those plans we drew in high school? The ones with the library and the window seats and the perfect studio space? They're not just dreams anymore. You bought our house? Her voice shakes slightly. The actual house we designed all our dreams around? Well, technically, the bank bought it and I'm going to pay them for the next 30 years. I slide off the hood, pulling her with me. But yeah, I bought our house. If you want it to be ours. Understanding dawns in her eyes as I drop to one knee, still holding her hand. Zoe Thompson. My voice comes out steadier than I feel. 3 months ago, you came home and turned my whole world upside down. Again. But this time, we got it right. This time we built something real. Not just with houses and renovations, but with trust and honesty and love, she whispers, tears spilling down her cheeks. And love, I agree, pulling out the ring box with my free hand. So what do you say? Want to build one more dream with me? Yes. She tugs me to my feet before I can even open the box. Yes, you wonderful, perfect man. Yes. I'm laughing as I slide the ring onto her finger, but then she's kissing me and I forget about everything else. When we finally break apart, the sun has set and the first stars are appearing above the mountains. We should head down, I murmur against her hair. Everyone's waiting at the copper kettle. She pulls back, eyebrows raised. Everyone? Small town. I grin. Word travels fast. Especially when Sarah's been stress baking pies all day and Rose keeps showing up with extra loaves of herb bread. You planned a whole engagement party? She shakes her head, laughing. No wonder Mrs. Elliot winked at me during the open house. The copper kettle is warm and bright when we walk in, the bell above the door chiming our arrival. A cheer goes up from the gathered crowd. Our families, our friends, our whole community packed into the old diner. Finally! Sarah hurries over with slices of apple pie. I was about to send a search party. Had to make it perfect, I say, accepting the pie with a grin. Rose appears with her signature bread, tucking a sprig of lavender into Zoe's hair. For joy and lasting love, she says with a wink. As our friends surround us with congratulations and hugs, I watch Zoe's face. She's glowing, completely at ease in a way she never was in Charlotte. This is where she belongs, where we belong. Happy? I whisper when I finally get her to myself for a moment. She holds up her left hand, letting her ring catch the light. Perfect. Then she reaches into her purse and pulls out a familiar roll of papers. Though I do have some thoughts about the kitchen layout in our new house. Of course you do. I pull her close, breathing in the scent of lavender and possibility. Good thing we have the rest of our lives to get it right. Around us, the diner hums with conversation and laughter. Sarah's pies disappear as fast as she can slice them, and Rose's bread basket never seems to empty. Mrs. Elliot is already talking about wedding venues, while Zoe's parents beam from their favorite booth. This is what coming home really means, I realize. Not just finding your place, but finding your people. Building something real, one dream at a time. And as Zoe leans into my side, already sketching design ideas on a diner napkin, I know we're going to build something amazing. Together.
The end. This has been The Key to Us, written by Suzanne Ash. Copyright 2025 by Suzanne Ash. Production copyright 2025 by Suzanne Ash. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe if you want me to put more of my books on YouTube. Visit my website at www.suzanneash.com for more of my books, or find me on Amazon.